Hey, welcome to Rise Church. Thanks so much for joining us online today. We believe that Jesus wants to do so much for you and through you, and we'd love to hear how he's working in your life. Please take a second to email your story to stories@rise-church.com. We hope you leave today feeling encouraged and uplifted. Enjoy the message.
Samson, week 2, this series that we're talking about, a life of strengths and weaknesses. In my own life, I got a few strengths. Maybe you can identify with one of these. How many of you are really strong at eating food that is unhealthy for you? You're like, man, I am just really good at that. Like, you put some fried food in front of me, I can tear it up. How many of you are really strong at sleeping? Like, it's just one of your spiritual gifts that you didn't even know existed. Come on, I don't care what time of day it is, I can fall asleep. How many of you know I'm already gonna get that hour back that the devil stole from me last night? I'm gonna get it back this afternoon in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. You know what one of my weaknesses is? Waking up. Waking up, the snooze is one of my, anybody, come on, raise your hand if the snooze is your weakness. How many of you hit it 3 times this morning? That's my average, is I'm a 3 snoozer. And then Rebecca finally wakes up and says, stop doing that. I'm like, you should have woke up on the first one. I set the alarm for you, babe, for you. What we're doing through this series is looking at the life of Samson. We're not really studying his life and diving into the details. You can do that in your own time. We're learning from his life. We're learning because Samson, like so many of us, made a lot of mistakes. And how many of you know the best way to learn is from making mistakes? And sometimes the best way to learn is from learning from other people's mistakes. And so some of you got an older sibling that made a lot of mistakes growing up. You're like, I don't want to do that. So you learned from them. That's kind of what we're doing with Samson's life. He made a lot of mistakes. We're not going to judge him because we're pretty jacked up too. But because of his mistakes that he made, we can learn from them. And so we look at his life and we see what he did and we understand, Samson, bro, get it together. Last week we talked about what does it look like to have a life that is dedicated to God. Today I want to talk about this, the source of strength. The source of strength. So many of us in our lives have sources of strength. Samson was a strong dude. Now, if you didn't grow up in church, odds are you even know a little bit about Samson, and what you know about him was that he was strong, like real strong. Let me give you 2 examples of Samson's strength. The first one was this. He was walking one day towards another town, and all of a sudden, a lion jumps out in front of him, and he just rips the lion to shreds, literally kills the lion with his bare hands. And you're looking at me like this, whatever, because you kill lions all the time with your bare hands, right? Literally, this is how strong this dude was. He wasn't afraid. Like, if I saw a lion, you would hear me do something like this, ah! And I would run the other direction. Samson's like, no, I got this. Bare hands. Another time, 1,000 men were coming to attack him. 1,000 men were coming to take him down. All he had around him was a jawbone of a dead donkey. He picks that bad boy up and he kills every single one of them, and then he starts talking trash. With the jawbone of a donkey, I made them like donkeys. I don't need to go into any detail of what he was saying there. I think you get the point. This dude was strong. I actually found a picture of what Samson could have looked like, what he could have looked like. I want to share it with you this morning. Something like this. I said, Rebecca, can I show him this picture? Am I allowed to do something like that? Take that down before somebody takes a screenshot of that. I said, take it down. Thank you. Don't you love it when somebody on your staff can Photoshop? So much fun to be had with that. Samson had a life of strengths, but he also had a life of weaknesses. And what we talked about last week was that Samson, when he was born, before he was born, the angel showed up to his parents and said, he needs to be following the Nazirite vow. And one of the stipulations to following this Nazirite vow was that you could never, ever, under any circumstance, cut your hair. And as you read on in Samson's story, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about this next week, his source of strength was his hair. Now, let me ask you a question, and you're all smart people. Was his source of strength really his hair? No. What was it? It was God. The same is true for my life and for your life. Now, there are things, I've been following Jesus for almost 20 years now, And there are things in my life where I know, God, you are the source of my strength, but then sometimes I will try to find strength in other things. And we all do this from time to time. Here's a few of mine, maybe you can relate. I like it when people say nice things to me. I like it a lot when people say nice things about me. When the church started and we got our Facebook page and people started liking some stuff, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. They like our church. And then we started doing some video stuff, and we would put some video clips of me preaching, and people would like it. And I was like, babe, they like me. They really like me. And it made me feel good about myself. And I don't care about it anymore. I screw y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to like it? Whatever. That's up to y'all. But it felt good to be liked in it, and I found like a source of strength in that. Sometimes I look at my bank account and I find a source of weakness, and I'm like, oh. And then other times I'm like, hey, not bad, we're saving. When that stimmy hits, I'm gonna be like, yeah, baby, let's go. Source of strength up in here. And I can rely on that. Sometimes, and this is probably true for most of us, my own source of strength is just myself. I can handle it. I don't need anybody's help. I can do this on my own. And unfortunately, we can even be like that with God sometimes. We don't say it directly, but it's how we live our lives, relying on our own strength instead of relying on Him. And this is what I came to the conclusion of. You already know this to be true because you're the 830 that loves Jesus. If we are finding our strength in anyone or anything other than Jesus, we are setting ourselves up for failure. I don't care what you're looking for your source of strength in. If it's anyone or anything other than Jesus, you are setting yourself up for failure. I love how the psalmist said it. He said this, I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? It only comes from one place. My help comes from, say it with me, the Lord. He is the maker of heaven and earth. I'm not looking to myself. It would be ridiculous if we came in here this morning and said, just one word that I speak, one word that I say, now we have the authority in who? Jesus, but it ain't our authority, it's His. I lift my eyes to the hills, to the mountains. Where does my help? My help comes from me. No, it doesn't. We got self-help books. You can go find thousands of them. You know why they don't work? Because you stink. You can't help yourself. You need a help that is greater than your own. I lift my eyes to where does my help come from? We could replace that word help with, where does my joy come from? Where does my peace come from? Where does my hope come from? Where does my strength come from? It comes from the Lord, and only Him. Only Him. He is our source of strength. John 15, Jesus goes on to say these words, I am the vine and you're the branches. If you, say it with me, remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And this is the kicker right here. Because apart from me, you can't do nothing. But what, I could do this. No, you can't. Well, I could do this. No, you can't. Because apart from Him, you can do nothing. Rebecca and I were talking about this week and just saying, what does it look like in my own life? What does it look like in her life whenever we find ourselves kind of operating out of our own strength? What does it look like when I'm not remaining? Here's what it looks like for me. I feel tired and just exhausted in life often. I feel easily irritated. Sometimes I just feel overwhelmed. But when I'm in His strength, when I'm not trying to do it on my own, when I'm remaining in Him, I feel at peace. I feel ready for battle. Throw something at me, devil, I'm ready for it because I'm not relying on my own strength. I'm relying on you. So how do you stay strong in a struggling marriage? You remain in Him. How do you stay strong when life is just throwing just darts after dart, just fiery darts from the devil after? You remain in him. How do you worship when life is still hard? You remain in him. And I'm telling you, there is a power that is available to you. There is a strength that you didn't even know was possible when you hit your knees and you say, God, I need you. And God, I know right now that everything in me wants to run from you because I'm mad at you because of what's going on in my life right now. But if we will remain in him, we will find a strength that we didn't even know was possible. Some of you are here today because you have walked through some fires and you didn't give up. You remained in him. And your strength today is stronger than ever. It's possible through Jesus. I love how Isaiah says it like this. Do you not know? Like, come on, you fools. Don't you know? You got to read the Bible a little like, you can't just read it exactly how it says it. Sometimes you just got to kind of ad-lib just a little bit, not too much, because then you start creating your own religion and stuff. But my man Isaiah is like, come on, bro, don't you know? Have you not heard? Have your ears not been opened yet? That the Lord is the everlasting God. Let me just I feel like Isaiah's saying, let me just remind you one more time who the Lord is. Let me, just in case you forgot, just in case you don't know yet, maybe you haven't heard yet, maybe this is the first time you're hearing this, but this is the 8:30, so you've heard this 100 times, you've heard this 1,000 times. Let me just say it one more time, just so you can be reminded. The Lord is the everlasting God. He's the creator of the ends of the earth. That means he's been here at the beginning. He's going to be here at the end. He will not grow tired or weary. God's not napping up in heaven going, I am exhausted right now. These people are wearing me out. He ain't tired. He doesn't get weary. And his understanding, no one can fathom. That means when God is working and he's at work in your life, it doesn't make sense all the time. That's okay, because he's working on a higher level than you could ever understand. And he's always working for your good and for his glory. And here it is. You ready? All this is who he is and what he does. And this is what he does for you. He gives strength to the weary, to the worn out, to the tired, and he increases the power of the weak. You know it's okay to admit that you're weak, right? Come on, go ahead and say out loud, I'm weak. That was weak. That was pretty weak. Come on, go ahead, say it, I'm weak. Come on, look to your neighbor and say, you look weak, bro. If she's a girl, say sis. Don't call her a bro. It's okay to admit that you're weak. It's okay to acknowledge, I am weak. I worked with a atheist years ago. We don't have any atheists on staff at our church, just so you're aware. And I would try to share Jesus with him, and he was an atheist, so he didn't believe in the God that I believed in. And we have conversations, and one time he just looked at me, like point blank, he was just like, you want to know what I think about Christianity and people that follow after Jesus? They just use it as a crutch, something to lean on, something to believe in, something to get them through the day. And I got offended. I was like, bro, don't be calling my Jesus a crutch. Like, And then I started thinking about it years later. I'm like, oh, that's exactly what he is. Because if I try to lean on myself, I'm going to jack my junk up. But if I lean on him, if I put all of my hope in him, if I don't put any strength on you know why you use a crutch? Because you can't put any strength on the thing that you're trying to walk around with. I had a knee problem in 5th grade, got ran over by a big kid in baseball. He was too old to play in the league we were playing in. He trucked me, ran me over, jacked my knee up. I had to use crutches for a while. You know what I couldn't do? I couldn't put pressure down. I couldn't walk on it. You know what God does? You can't walk on your own. You got to fully rely on him. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't rely on your own understanding. Lean on him. He'll make your path straight. He'll tell you where to go. Christianity is a crutch. You better believe it is, man. I can't do nothing apart from Jesus. I need him every single day, and I'm okay admitting it. Next time somebody that doesn't believe in God, they throw that out there, you go, you're right, man. You should see me without Jesus. It ain't pretty. It is not pretty. Sometimes they do see you without Jesus. You need to fix that. Apostle Paul says this in 2 Corinthians. And what you got to understand about these verses, let me give you a little context. My man Paul has been praying that God would remove something from his life. You probably have prayed something similar. I doubt you've prayed it like Paul prayed it. Paul says it's this thorn in his flesh. He can't get rid of it. And I find it funny that Paul's like, God, I've prayed 3 times for this. Like, only 3, Paul? But 3 times he's prayed for God to remove it, and God doesn't. And we don't know what it is. Some people think maybe it was a sin problem. I personally think it was his past. Because, you know, Paul used to murder Christians. And I think maybe Paul, when he was trying to go to sleep at night, would see the faces of the people that he killed. And maybe he just couldn't move on. Maybe it just ate him up inside. And he's praying, God, just help me, give me some strength to move past this. And I don't know what it is. We don't know what it is, but he prays. And every time the Lord meets him, and he says, my grace is sufficient for you, Paul. You want me to take this thing away, but my grace is here for you, Paul. My grace is meeting you right where you are, Paul. For my power is made perfect in weakness. So Paul goes, all right, Lord, if you're going to tell me that, therefore. And you know what a therefore is for, right? Every time you see a therefore, you need to know what it's there for. Here we go. Therefore, Paul says, I'm going to start bragging. I'm going to start boasting. I'm going to start letting everybody know just how weak I am. Some of y'all need to walk out of here today. You need to go to work tomorrow and just tell everybody, let me tell you guys how messed up I am. Let me tell you how weak I am. Let me tell you how much I need Jesus. I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. You know how you get the power and the strength of God? By acknowledging your own weakness. You know what God can't work on? Somebody that's prideful. Somebody that's proud, somebody that thinks they can do it on their own. If you're walking around going, I got this, I don't need God's help, God looks down at you and goes, I can't work with that. But the moment you look and go, God, I can't do anything apart from you. I got all this weakness. I got all this stuff. I can't do this. God, I need you. God's like, I can work with that. Because now I'm going to come in and I'm going to get all the glory. Let's read on. That is why, for Christ's sake, Paul, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. Y'all are like, why is the band coming up? I told you it was going to be short. Here it is right here. You ready? For when I am weak, that's when I'm actually strong. When I acknowledge my own weakness, that's when I get the strength. That's when I get a greater strength. See, some of you are so exhausted right now, mentally and physically, because you're trying to do everything on your own. You can do it. That will only last for a time, and it will wear you out. Why am I so exhausted? Why am I so tired? Why am I so overwhelmed? Because you're trying to do it on your own. Acknowledge your weakness. Acknowledge your need for him. That's when you get strong. That's when you tap into a greater strength that you didn't even realize was possible. And as followers of Jesus, we all know this to be true, but we forget it from time to time. So this is a reminder. This is a come on, wake up call. He is our only source of strength. He is everything that we need. And apart from him, we can do nothing. Now let me shift gears just a bit. I've told you that you're weak. I've told you that you're jacked up. Let me shift gears just a little bit and tell you how strength grows in your life. We have a saying around here that the sermon starts in the parking lot. You know, the sermon at Rise Church this morning did not start when I got the microphone and walked up on the stage. It started in the parking lot. It started in the online lobby. People greeting you. People waving at you out on the street corner when you pulled in, helping you find a spot to park. The sermon started when our first-time guest team welcomed you, when our Rise Kids team welcomed you in, when our hospitality team threw out some coffee and just created an atmosphere that was inviting, when our ushers helped you find a seat, when our band started. Like, the sermon started before I started the sermon. You understand that, right? God was already speaking to people's hearts. God was already showing people love before my voice ever started speaking through this microphone. You know that your strength grows before your strength grows. Meaning Samson's source of strength was his hair, but Samson wasn't born with long hair. Like, he didn't look like this when he came out of the womb. This kid's a stud, man. Look at that. Like, Samson's hair, you can take that down. Put the one of me back up. I'm just teasing, don't do that. Samson's hair grew, like, over time. And as his hair grew, his strength grew. It's the same for me and you. Like, your strength doesn't just you start following Jesus and I'm strong now. I got the strength of God. Now you have access to God's strength. On day one of you becoming a follower of Jesus, you have access to the strength of God. But just like anything, that strength grows over time. So you can look on at somebody and just go, man, they're so strong in the Lord. And you can say, I want the strength that they have. Well, here's what you need to understand. Those people that are so strong in the Lord have walked through some battles. And it's in the battles that the strength grew. Some of you look on and you see somebody and they just have so much joy. I want that joy that they have. You know what happened with that joy? That joy was produced through seasons of sorrow. They didn't just wake up with joy one day. They've been through some stuff. You look on at somebody with amazing faith and you go, man, how do they have that faith? That faith grew in some very dark valleys. They walked through some very hard times. See, we look on and we go, I want their faith, but do you want their valleys? God is our source of strength. And our strength grows as we walk this life and we trust him day after day, day in and day out, through the good and through the bad. And you get to a point where a dedicated life we talked about last week, a life that doesn't give up, that keeps putting our hope in God, that's where strength grows. When you walk through the divorce, when you walk through the job loss, when you walk through the sickness, and you remain, and you come out of something stronger than I have sat across the table from so many people and just looked at them in the eyes and go, if you remain in Jesus, if you can keep trusting God through this, you will come out stronger than ever before. And I don't know how long this season of life is gonna last for you, but I'm telling you, there is purpose on the other side, and God is gonna produce some stuff in you that he could only produce through this valley. Did God cause the valley? I don't think so, but he's allowing you to walk through it because his understanding is greater than yours, and he's got a greater purpose. And I know it hurts right now, but if you remain in him, there is a strength that is coming, and it's not just for you. What God does in you is never just for you, it's for others. So let him do it. Let him do it in you so that you can then give it away. You know that sometimes your faith needs to carry somebody else for a time. Your strength needs to pick somebody else up that's feeling weak. That's the body of Christ at its finest. So come on, Rise Church. Are we trying to do it on our own? Are we tired? Are we worn out? Hey, have you not known? Did you not hear, Rise Church, that the Lord is the everlasting God? He doesn't get tired. He doesn't get worn out. He gives strength to those who are weak, though. Would you do me a favor right now, just where you are? We're just going to confess this morning our weakness and our need for him. Would you pray with me?
Thanks for watching today. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram. If our church has had an impact on you and you'd like to support all that Jesus is doing in this place, you can do so by going to rise-church.com/give and select the giving option that best suits you. Thanks so much for joining us online, and we hope you have a blessed week.